Okay, so I'm going to talk about Smith Grove, Kentucky on this one. I did a video talking about Bowling Green and the growth of that city, which is my hometown. Smith Grove is where I grew up, to be honest with you. I was born in Bowling Green, but moved to Smith Grove when I was really, really young. And it was cool when I was like 7 or 8. All this land and everything and all the stuff. I remember when my mom first got there and they were digging the utility lines. There's this huge trench, all this land, and I could jump over actually, my mom jumped over the trench. She told me to jump over. I jumped in it. I think that I wanted to jump in it on purpose. But at any rate, I remember all that. By the time I was like 13, 14, the thrill was gone. It was, I'm like, this is boring as hell. Trying to find something to do after a while, it just gets boring. Then you have kids talking about, we went to the mall, which back in the day, the mall was the thing to do in Bowling Green. And even the kids up in Smith Grove, that was the only mall. And so we went. And then as you got to be a young adult, talking 18 to 20, there's not much to do. The clubs sucked at that time, so we would go down every now and again to Nashville. Nashville always had cool stuff. So finally I moved out of that city, and it's like, okay, great. Not too long after I moved out of the city did it start to explode, right? It started to lead that path of growth and development. And one city that stayed stuck in the past for the longest time has been Smith Grove, Kentucky. If you go to Wikipedia, which is not the best place to find information, but you can go to the census.gov, and look at the past 40 years of population, and Smith Grove has not changed. It's kind of been right here, which is a good thing because a lot of cities that size dip. But it's been 700 to 800 people most of the time that I've known the city existing. And recently, I would say 3 years ago, the city was told that they were going to, maybe 2 years ago, that Buc-ee's, which is a large convenience store out of Texas, was going to put a site up there in Smith Grove. Now, let me first back up. Smith Grove at one point in time had the old CB grocery store. And it was cool. We only had maybe one fast food place at the time. We had a truck stop. And the city did not have alcohol, right? Because the county was dry, but the city of Bowling Green was wet. They're both in Warren County. And so now, back in the day, they passed, I remember they tried for years and people were like, no. And then finally, they're like, bigger things to deal with. And the region has grown. So you can now buy alcohol anywhere in the state, in the county of Warren County. It just makes sense. And my cats want all my attention. And so the city is starting to grow organically. There's a small company that moved in that does, it's a small little factory that I think has taken over where the CB store once was, or close to it. There's another little grocery store that's there, which is an IGA. And, another fast food joint came in. So there's like 3 fast food joints. McDonald's, we thought that was the shit when it first came. And then you had Wendy's. That was like, okay, Wendy's. Subway, of course, has always been there. And that was it. Smith Grove kind of just did its thing and continued. It's known for its antiques. But Buc-ee's made an announcement that they're going to be coming. And this city that has 750 people now has an employer that brings 200 jobs. So by and large, the biggest employer. Hey Zoe, come get your cat. He won't leave me alone now. This dude, hold on, let me show you. He won't leave me alone. He's trying to get up in my lap and bother me and all that. But at any rate, so 200 jobs. And these are not jobs that are like, cheap, buddy. They're not cheap paying jobs. They're like paying 21, 23 bucks an hour in Smith Grove, Kentucky. He loves me. So it's a big, big deal. Now, if you look at the census tract in 2020, the city had 750 people, I think is what it says. In 2024, it grew by 50 people. So now it has 803. This may be the largest the city has ever been, potentially. The reason why Smith Grove doesn't grow any larger, he doesn't even want to get down, is because there's no housing, right? There's no housing for people to move into. Now, if there was an apartment in Bowling Green right now, that's not the problem. Bowling Green, there's so many developments going on, and I haven't been there for a little bit, but there's so many developments going on that one developer can add 1,000 units just in one development. Chandler Realty is an example. They actually have a piece of land where they're just building basically a whole new city almost. It's got a Hyatt hotel, it's got medical facilities. I believe a hospital is going in over there, over 1,000 different residential units, different types. Some are apartments, some are condos, some are houses. So it's that part of the country, sprawl is a thing. And all you have around Bowling Green is old farmland. With people my age who are like, man, my dad and stuff, or my uncles used to farm, but I'm not into that. So you have a lot of people my age like, bro, you can have it. You're going to give me $1 million for that? I'll take it. And so you're seeing a lot of that happen in Bowling Green. Smith Grove has a tremendous amount of farmland. That's all it is farmland and trees, right? So it could grow for a while. There are areas that you will look and it says that Smith Grove, even though the town of Smith Grove is far away, it's got a lot of area to expand. It just doesn't have developers there just yet. Now, the smart places to build apartments in Smith Grove and housing is as close to the interstate as you possibly can get. Why? People are going to complain. They've seen what's going on in Bowling Green. They see the people complain. You can go to any sort of website, and I agree with them. People talk about traffic being one of the biggest problems in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It's just grown so fast that it can't handle that type of development. And the city has been slow to build road infrastructure. It's been preparing for that in certain aspects, but you don't really know what you don't know. And so with the lucrative amount of jobs, Nashville exploding, there are people who live in Bowling Green and drive down to Nashville every day. It's only 60 miles away. So they do that every day because they don't have to live in a big city, but they have a decent sized city and the pay is good. Buying houses, Noelle and I were looking at houses and crying because this house here is old, but worth a lot of money. You go to Bowling Green, you can find a house much bigger, much nicer, in an exclusive neighborhood, and I would be able to sell this, buy that outright, and still have some money left over. You know what I mean? Like, it's very affordable. Smith Grove, I think you will probably start to see more higher end apartments and higher end homes. Here's why I believe that. Smith Grove is a blank canvas. It has, as I mentioned, Buc-ee's is going to be one of the biggest job opportunities up there, but they're not paying low, cheap wages. You also have, not far away, the Trans Park, which has thousands of jobs. And one of the companies that's coming in is a battery manufacturer, that's a Japanese battery manufacturer, employing 2,000 people. 2,000. So 2,000 jobs. And Smith Grove is not far away. Oakland is a tiny little, Oakland's as big as this room. Tiny little town. But they're not far away. Smith Grove benefits, unlike Oakland. Oakland has a weird interchange. You can get off, you can get on, but that's it. And on either direction, but they don't have it. It's not like your typical intersection. I don't know how to say it. There's only two ramps. You can get on or you can get off. but not, you can't go north in one direction, you can't go south in the other direction. I don't know. But in Smith Grove, you don't have that problem. So with the added employer and people wanting to be as close as they can to their jobs and probably finding some relief from Bowling Green, you're going to see people move to Smith Grove. So it went from 750 people to 800 people this year. It probably has never hit 800 people before. And I think that number's going to grow. Now, where will it grow to? I mean, it grew by 1.65%. Not bad. It's pretty good. That is still less than the growth rate of Bowling Green, which is growing at 2.27%, I believe. To give you a little bit of perspective, Tacoma is only growing by 0.87, which and of course, the bigger you are, that number still means we're bringing more people into the city than those cities are. But it is you don't see it as bad, right? We're pretty big as far as the city is concerned, so you can add 1,000 people, you don't notice it. Bowling Green, on the other hand, you add 1,000 people, you feel it. You see it, you feel it instantly. So Bowling Green is growing 3.5 times faster than Tacoma. Tacoma is growing probably almost double that of Seattle. To give you an idea, which is insane. Seattle is slowing down, right? Tacoma's picking up. But Smith Grove, on the other hand, is a little bit less, and even with its only 50 people being added, those 50 people, you feel it. Now, where do I think it'll go in 2030? Probably Smith Grove will bump up to close to 1,000 people. Here's why. It is cheap land that you can buy up there. A developer can come in and say, you know what, I'm going to put in 10 luxury homes. People won't complain. If you bought 25 acres and you put large homes for that area worth $600,000 and up, gated community, they'd be gone like that. That's for certain. They'd be gone quick. If you went there and you put in a part, because it's quiet, crime just doesn't exist really, there's no stoplight. That's how small it is. But it's close to where you need to be. It's right there on the interstate. So transit, it's not hard. You know, the General Motors plant is just the exit away in Bowling Green. So it's not, job possibilities are easy. But I think Buc-ee's is a lure. Now people can go there anytime they want. And it's a 24/7 type of place, I believe. The only thing in that town that's going to be 24 hours. You know what I mean? Maybe some of the gas stations are. There's truck stops there too. So there's a big truck stop. So people are saying Buc-ee's they don't like truckers or something I was reading, but doesn't matter. There's a giant truck stop that's right there too. This is a logistic hub. It's becoming one. So I do see that happening. I think as far as apartment buildings go, you're not going to get away with some 200 unit building like they do here. But I think you would be able to put in one building that has 15 to 20 units in it. I think Smith Grove would be okay with that, especially if you have the parking. I think the city would be okay with that because they see that as small growth and it makes sense. I think that if you had developers do stuff like that, it would definitely help take some of the pressure off. What's going to happen is similar to Bowling Green. Smith Grove is not going to be able to, and I don't think it's the city's fault necessarily, but it's not going to get the developers, similar to here, to come and pay attention until it's too late. And in Bowling Green's case, developers are now paying a lot of attention, and even at the rate that they're building all these homes and apartments and everything, and people complain about it, and they go farther and farther and farther out, it's still a drop in the bucket. The demand for housing in Bowling Green is insane. It's just, they're not building fast enough and they can't. Now, if they built up and they started popping up a couple of buildings, and I'm always a big proponent of building up. If they did that in terms of apartments and they built 10-story buildings and 12-story buildings, they did about 5 of those downtown, that would definitely take the pressure off in Bowling Green. If each one of those buildings held 150 to 300 people apiece, that will definitely take some of the pressure off. And you wouldn't have all this sprawl, and you wouldn't have all the issues. The congestion would be downtown, but you would have a lot more easier access and pedestrian type use. They're not doing that. Developers want to build out in homes and sprawl. It becomes very expensive. Smith Grove, on the other hand, is a very tiny little hamlet. So any sort of development that goes on is going to have to be kind of close to its little tiny downtown, which really is only about 3 or 4 buildings, and they're all kind of tucked in a corner, right? This is a small town. I don't know if it was an old blacksmith town, because it kind of makes sense. I don't know. But Smith's Grove, it makes sense. It was a small grove. It's just a tiny little town. And I do see that growing. But I think Buc-ee's is going to definitely lead the way, because people are going to be a lot more attracted to the area. They're going to be visiting. The the vehicle traffic alone is making it where the city and the state have to do all these development projects to actually expand. Zoe, do you mind going and shutting that off? It's requiring basically the city to basically build up the roundabout systems that they have, because I don't think there's still going to be stoplights. And the ramps to the interstate are being bulked up just for this one business. So because of all that vehicular traffic, of course, you're going to start seeing more development go on in that city, close to that area, because people want to take advantage of all that flow. So I think by 2030, yeah, I think Smith Grove will probably notch up to finally reach 1,000 people, which will be the biggest it's ever been in its entire history. And I think that it's going to be done pretty smartly if we have developers that do this now and work on projects that make sense. I think that Smith Grove has that opportunity to be kind of one of those bedroom suburbs, if you will, that some of the wealthy folks will say, you know what, I'd rather live there. I think Smith Grove has a lot of different variety, right? I lived there forever. So you have people who are poor, no question. And that's kind of almost the bulk. And you have people who are middle class, no question. You do have your wealthy people. I went to school with some of them, no question. But I think it's going to probably lean more towards upper middle class and higher, just based on some of the things that are already there, right? Antiques, stuff like that. I think there's like a little wine shop or something that's there. It's trying to head in that direction. So do I think that will happen? Probably. Do I think that's going to hit 1,000 people in 2030? Probably. Do I think that there are going to be more businesses that kind of lure in them or come in because the lure is Buc-ee's? Probably. Do I think that Smith Grove has an opportunity now to definitely try to work on its road system because there's not one? Yeah, they should. Because it's going to be too late by the time they finally get around to let's work on these other roads. And not just right there by Buc-ee's. I mean, truly throughout the Main Street. Enhancing Main Street. What does that look like? Your downtown, or what you call a downtown, do you want that to still be your downtown? Or is it a good idea to say, hey, let's reimagine? If they don't own a piece of land where they want to expand their city center, then do so. You have the opportunity to do it. There's plenty of vacant land, plenty. But I think that they need to think forward thinking versus just waiting for things to happen, because that never works out. But tell me what your thoughts are. I do see Smith Grove growing. I never would have thought this, but one company can make a big difference. And when you have this along with that company that moved in not long ago, that is actually a manufacturer, it makes good sense. But anyhow, tell me what your thoughts are. Until next time, I will see you. Take care.